In 1916, at the Riding Stampede show in New York, Norwegian-American Tilly Baldwin entered the arena alongside professional cowhands. It was a step into a space still closed to women in early 20th century rodeos, and showed how the cowboy, born from the labor of the West, was becoming entertainment for urban audiences in America's big cities. At the end of the Civil War, a cowboy from the West holds a Henry .44, a lever-action rifle released in 1860. The weapon brought rapid fire with a 15-round tubular magazine and became a symbol of an accelerating era. Even so, in the vast bison hunts, it was rarely seen. Its weight, range, and cost limited its role far from the towns. Vera McGinnis, alongside two cowgirls, shows how, since the late 19th century, something left the Texas ranches and entered the rodeo arenas in New York. Across the country, in working corrals and parades, Western attire became a practical uniform and a symbol of identity for men and women in livestock work, both on the job and at celebrations, as well as in equestrian shows. In 1912, at Crater Lake National Park, Oregon, rangers organized one of the first rowboat crossings. The small team crossed the deep blue water, took measurements near Wizard Island, and compared old reports. It was science done the hard way. To understand a caldera opened by the eruption of Mount Mazama about 7,700 years ago and its traces. In the early 20th century, in the Hopi villages of the Arizona Plateau, basket weaving was part of daily life. Artisans gathered yucca, cured fibers, dyed them with minerals, and wove spirals that marked clans. They served rituals, trade, and the storage of corn. Even under missionaries and federal agents, the craft followed sacred rules and was passed down through generations. Stephanie Hagenbarth carried out the routine of cattle ranching on a property that crosses the line between Idaho and Montana. She checked fences, branded calves, and negotiated sales. The family has kept this land since the 1880s, preserving management methods passed from parents to children. There, frontier and tradition shaped every decision on the range. At the end of the 19th century, Indian Territory became a focus of conflict. Marshals Heck Thomas, Bill Tillman, and Chris Madsen operated there with the full force of the law. After 5 years on the run, accused of killing Deputy Daniel Maples, the Cherokee Ned Christie was surrounded in November 1892. The standoff ended his life and marked the tensions of the time. In 1928, in the open valleys of Wyoming, Cavalry Lieutenant Jack Colleton, Tim McCoy, takes on a thorny mission. With a minimal garrison, enforce federal law and prevent disputes over routes and resources from exploding among settlers, traders, and indigenous peoples. The balance is fragile, and a single mistake could ignite the region, drawing crossed vendettas. In 1849, during a topographic expedition through the arid south of what was then the New Mexico Territory, Engineer Lieutenant Emil Weeks Whipple found, by the Gila River Trail, a disoriented Yuma teenage girl. He noted that after days without food or water, she was barely breathing. He gave aid and took her to the Yuma settlement, returning her to her family's leaders. In 1915, with tourism growing in the West, Mariposa Grove was already part of Yosemite National Park. The grove held the most visited cluster of giant sequoias. Naturalists and travelers came to measure, record, and debate conservation, while guides explained why protecting these trees mattered to the country, and the flow of visitors kept rising. In 1906, the Arizona Club enlivened a Las Vegas that was still just a railroad outpost in the desert. There were gambling tables, a drink counter, and rooms for railway workers, miners, and travelers from the San Pedro, Los Angeles, and Salt Lake Railroad. With fewer than 5,000 residents, the town made the club its meeting point, business hub, and a sure subject in the local press. In 1911, at the second Pendleton Roundup in Pendleton, Oregon, women's presence in rodeo was marked. Minutes before the start, the horsewomen lined up on horseback, wearing hats and riding skirts, and saluted the grandstand. The gesture said it all. They would enter every event in earnest, ready to test strength and skill against any competitor. In 1940, at age 14, Casey Tibbs left his family ranch in South Dakota and hit the road chasing the professional rodeo circuit. He rode like few others, and in 1949 became world champion and appeared on the cover of Life magazine. When the competition days ended, he spent about 20 years in Hollywood. acting, doing stunt work, and coordinating rodeo scenes in films. On December 1st, 1886, at the Bellevue Station in Texas, Jim and his brother Rube Burrow stopped the night train, disarmed the crew, and took only a few $100s. The small heist sparked something bigger. From then on, a series of robberies would send sheriffs, Pinkerton detectives, and armed posses chasing the pair across the countryside for months. In Wyoming, one scene works as a short lesson. Tim McCoy explains, without embellishment, how the westward march shaped trails, forts, and conflicts. He lays out the Army's role on the frontier at the end of the 19th century and describes the customs of indigenous nations, connecting maps, dates, and politics into a direct portrait of that time. The record of the Wyoming cowboy vanished from the archives, but authorship was attributed to Charles D. Kirkland of Cheyenne, then a railroad hotspot. From the negative analysis, the scene was taken between 1877 and 1895, a period when the Old West was already changing pace and the cowboy posed between myth and real life in a territory growing fast. December 3, 1880. W.S. Kugler, co-owner of the Las Vegas Gazette, publishes a long article about the year that changed the Pecos River Valley and the panhandle of the New Mexico Territory. A rise in cattle theft, stagecoach robbery, and homicide. He lists those involved and says that all obey Billy the Kid, seen as a leader capable of moving any gang. In 1906, at the Turkey Track Ranch in Texas, a group of cowboys and onlookers gathered to play Mumblety Peg, a campsite pastime in the Southwest. The challenge required a steady hand and attention to the pocket knife, with clear rules and point scoring turn by turn. Those who missed lost ground. Those who mastered it became stories retold by the campfire for years. In the second half of the 19th century, Henry Miller and Charles Lux went from being butchers to building, in 1858, an empire in the San Joaquin Valley. The Miller and Lux Ranch became an integrated operation: cattle, farming, and slaughter. With about 1.3 million acres across CA, Oregon, and NV, they connected canals and railways to supply cities in series across the United States. At the turn of the 19th century, rifles came with barrels ranging from 28 to 32 inches. Records from Oregon in 1880 show guards of the Astoria Express Company with that standard. Cutting the barrel helped in hallways and train cars, but the longer barrel offered a steadier aim, better range, and slightly less recoil when firing. In the end, mobility versus precision decided the job. In 1888 in Pueblo, Colorado, two neighbors show how they hunted. One wields a Winchester 1886 lever action, the other a double-barreled shotgun with external hammers. In the West, 10 and 12 gauge cartridges dominated for impact. 16 and 20 gauge were for lighter work, ideal for fast birds and targets that called for a precise hand. Donaldina Cameron, born in New Zealand, arrived young in San Francisco and began working at the Presbyterian Mission for Chinese Girls. From 1895 until her retirement 47 years later, she led a home on Sacramento Street, and with legal backing and raids, fought gangs that brought girls from Canton into servitude and prostitution on the West Coast. In Caldwell, Kansas, an unnamed cowboy embodies the rhythm of the Chisholm Trail. Hat pulled low, revolver in holster, and rifle in hand, he prepares to drive the herd toward the rail lines. It was the time when cattle crowded the railroad towns, stirring money, chaos, and stories. And every stop could change a destiny. In 1879, at the height of the Silver Rush in Leadville, the Tabor Opera House was born. 3 stories, brick walls about 16 inches thick. Politicians, artists, and miners all passed through there. The building survived more than a century of Rocky Mountain winters and still tells how the town was built and transformed. On October 17, 1906, the Deadwood Theater was packed. The audience, mostly well-paid miners, bought tickets without bargaining and filled every seat. Actor Charles Chapin noted that every scene drew applause. That night showed more than a performance. The town displayed a full pocket and a united voice, and it left one question hanging: what would come next? In 1889, at the Moulin Rouge in Montmartre, the dance hall performer became a key figure of Parisian nightlife. She combined can-can, burlesque humor, and toasts, leading the audience. Layered skirts, corsets, and high stockings came to life under gaslight. For tourists and locals alike, the cabaret became a showcase of urban modernity. For generations, these trees survived droughts, plagues, landslides, windstorms, and floods unharmed. What wounded them came from our own hands: recklessness. It was the warning of John Muir, a pioneer of conservation in the United States, reminding that nature endures much but cannot overcome human carelessness. And we pay the price. In July 1878, the outlaw Sam Bass arrived in Round Rock with his gang and targeted the bank. The job was set for July 19th, but informants alerted the authorities. Texas Rangers and police took the street. The gunfire started before the heist. Bass and 2 partners fell. Another escaped wounded. Reports mention Jeff Smith, 17 years old, witness of the day. Teddy Blue Abbott arrived in Miles City when the town set the pace for cattle across the northern Great Plains. He said the rule was simple. When the cowboys' money ran out in the saloons and auctions, no one stayed. The money moved fast on payday. You saddled your horse, took the trail back to the ranch, and waited for the next season.